here with one of Austin's biggest up-and-coming comedians, Derrick Phelps. That's how I found you, by the way. You're one of the most up-and-coming comedians in Austin.
All right.
And Austin has quite a few things that he does, he's spanning comedy, music, and a few other projects. So can you describe those for us?
No.
Okay, well, fair
Just
enough.
kidding.
Next episode.
I've been doing stand-up for, what is this? I want to say it's 10 years, but I kind of don't want to say it's 10 years because they say 10 years is when you're supposed to find your voice.
Okay.
And then it's too much pressure. So
So
it might be.
If you haven't found it now, it's like it's time.
It's like 9 years. It's been 9 years and 11 months for several years now.
Okay, so realistically, it's like 12 years then?
Something. It's somewhere in there. I'm not sure. I don't remember when I started.
Well, there's like you ever meet those kids and they don't really grow until they're like late in high school or college? Maybe you're a late bloomer.
That's possible.
But you have also bloomed tremendously because there's thousands of comedians that never even get the time of day, and you're featured in a lot of different places. You've got shows going on constantly. I was on your website checking some of those out, and you had the distinction of making me laugh pretty loud today when I was watching some of your stuff online.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, it was great. There's if you haven't had a chance to see Derrick live, you got to check out the yoga bit.
Oh, man.
So so we'll get to that more in a second. Tell me more about like some of the other things you got going on, because I saw that you're in a few bands.
Yeah, I'm also a trumpet player. And I've been playing for 30 years or something like that now. So right now I've got main group is Hard Proof. It's an Afrobeat group.
What's Afrobeat?
It's a hybrid of funk, American funk, and African rhythms, built and it kind of invented by Fela Kuti.
Okay.
He was a West African Nigerian musician.
Okay. And how old is the genre?
Oh, geez. Now put me on the spot.
Oh, it's all right if you don't know.
30 years, something like that. 30, 40, okay. maybe 40 years now.
So it's not like Mozart made it.
No.
Right.
No.
That's what I'm asking for, like general context.
Yeah. No. 40, 50 years, something like that.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
So you're doing that. You've got the trumpet background, but then you also do your game show.
Yeah. So
tell me about that.
So I have a game show called Can I say?
Yeah, you.
The name of it.
Yeah,
it's allowed.
I warned Derrick to try not to swear during the show, but your game show title has a curse in it, so yeah, that'll play.
It's called Dammit.
Okay.
And it's kind of inspired by the old game show that was on TV called Make Me Laugh. Mm-hmm. So it's stand-up comedians and other kinds of comedians come and try to make a contestant laugh, and if they can resist laughing, then they win.
Does anyone make it?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Really?
Yeah, comedians have it rough.
Okay.
Because they're winning prizes. So if they know they're going to win a prize, then you can.
What kind of prizes are we
talking
about?
Steel trap, miserable people out there.
Yeah, well, I can see that.
Yeah.
I run into them pretty regularly.
Yeah.
So next time I see someone in a bad mood, I'm going to say, did you win a game show last night?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, so how long has that been going on?
I think it's, 5 years now, 5.5 years.
5 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, and we did pretty well for, the last maybe few years or so. It's really hit a stride. Mm-hmm. And we moved venues into the Alamo Draft House Mueller, which has a bar called the Barrel of Fun.
Okay.
And they do kids events. So we decided to do a kid version of the show called Laugh Darn It, which I can say on this podcast.
We fit very cleanly in the family section of iTunes.
Yeah. So and that's been going pretty well.
Now, do any kids make it out alive?
That's more rare.
Okay.
Kids are more fun, I think.
See,
general.
like if I'm, are the prizes have to be killer for adults to like want the prize more than to have fun while you're out?
Sure, and you have to be.
Or is it fun to win? I can't. When I go to a comedy club or any comedy event, like I am in the mood to like have a great time.
Sure.
So I can't imagine winning that.
Well, you know, the comics are playing to the audience, but they're,
Right.
you know, so like it's not really as like cutthroat as it sounds, you know?
Right.
But when we first started doing the shows at the Alamo Draft House, South Lamar, we hadn't been in an Alamo Draft House themed bar before, so we didn't have access to super cool prizes. We were doing like dollar store prizes.
Okay.
So as soon as we had like movie passes to give out or food and beverage cards,
Something better.
it was
more.
like, you know,
People wanted it.
So we got excited on that first show, and like it was like, all right, anybody want a movie pass? You can come up. And people come up and just like shut down and like didn't look at anybody, and they're like, yeah, I just want a movie pass. So you had to be careful.
Yeah, so I'm remembering the Make Me Laugh TV show, and that was on like MTV or Nickelodeon, or where am I remembering this?
Oh, geez, that's a good question.
This was
that
way
first
back.
one, yeah.
This is like 90s, if I
yeah,
recall.
because it did come back on Comedy Central.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's come back a couple times.
Okay.
I think initially it was in black and white. They had
So
while ago, yeah.
This goes past your music genre.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Way past.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, so it's been around for quite some time.
So tell me about like where you from originally? Are you from Austin, or how's it come through for you?
Mostly from Michigan.
From Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay. So how'd you get? Well, tell me about that. Like born there, moved quickly, or moved around a bunch, or how's that look?
Born in Pennsylvania. Moved to Michigan when I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
That was 1986.
Good year, by the way.
Yes. And then I was there until I was 28 or so, something like that.
So you spent like most of those formative years in Michigan.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you go to school up there then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I went to Wayne State University.
Wayne State.
Yeah, it's more known for the law school and the medical school, mostly the medical school.
Okay.
But they have a really good.
So you're in
law
Michigan
school.
until you're 28. Did you start the comedy career in Michigan?
No.
So that happened here.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So tell me about that.
Well, I moved down here to live with my brother and help him out with his kid, and just kind of get into a new scene and see what's up. And eventually he kicked me out. So you can't live here anymore. All right.
So you came down to be a help, but then eventually it turned on you.
Yeah, I mean, it was great, but I think I overstayed my welcome a little bit. That's not the first time that's happened. And so I was out on my own and kind of needed to meet people, and the music scene wasn't quite as welcoming as I needed it to be as far as that goes.
Right.
I had met some people, but I went and saw an improv show, and had a great time, and they seemed to have like a really good scene. You know, they're very friendly with each other, and lots of good people, and they're super funny. So that's where I started. I wanted to do improv, but I had a music, like a band rehearsal on that night that they did the improv class. So they suggested I do stand-up instead.
Okay. So you were just looking for a place to be, and stand-up hit you in the face.
Yeah, basically.
Interesting. So that, like, a lot of comedians talk about like this, a bug that hits them, and it's just like something that gives you the staying power to stay in comedy all these years, because you've been doing it for, we'll say, 10 years and 11 months, or 9 years and 11 months.
Yeah.
And because that's a long career to do one thing. So, like, tell me about, I guess the question would be like, what keeps you going after comedy? And I ask this in context of like, anyone that's in any career, there has to be some why,
Sure.
Like some beautiful thing you get from the space that keeps you wanting to do this. I have these questions in my own day-to-day sometimes.
Sure. I don't know. There's something super fun for me about, I don't know how true this is. It might be true, but like I'm not super gregarious, and like when I'm at a party, I have a couple of like go-to stories,
Right.
but like when I'm like in a crowd of people, it's really tough for me to like start conversations and be conversational or like relaxed in that setting.
Right.
But when I'm on stage and talking to the audience, like they're forced to listen to me,
Interesting. Okay.
So I have I can like play with that space and that time and that the language that I need to kind of do what I want.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense. It's funny when I go to comedy shows, it's if you go to a headliner comedian, it's everyone be quiet, turn off your phones. If you say anything, we're gonna get you out of here.
Yeah.
So like I could see how like if you're going up and no one can talk while I'm talking kind of thing, that's kind of cool.
Sure.
So what like you've been in the space and you've probably seen a big translation in how the business has been run over this time, I'd assume, or has it stayed the same?
Well, in Austin, it's changed a little bit.
Okay, tell me about it.
When I first started, there were not a whole lot of shows besides the ones that were in the comedy club. So you had Cap City Comedy Club, and you have the Velveeta Room, which is owned by Esther's Follies.
Okay.
And I think there was one other show, which was at Cold Town Theater, if I'm not mistaken, at that time. And I don't think there were very many others. Now it's like there's a show every day of the week. There might be more than one.
Right.
So you're like, and the comics have grown. The number of comics have grown along with that.
I think the comedy has grown dramatically really since, I think you can tie it pretty closely to Netflix. Would you say? Yeah. Would you say that's accurate or not?
I hadn't thought of that before, but maybe, yeah. So that makes sense.
I mean, those Netflix specials are more accessible than any of the old HBO specials that are out there.
Yeah.
Comedy Central was huge in the space for quite a while and still is, but and maybe you could tie it to the DVR as well, because these late night comedy specials would come on, and if you missed it, like you missed it.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
So I think I don't know if that's real, but that's my theory on it.
That makes sense. I'm sure it has something to do with it. And YouTube, people.
Oh yeah.
There's you can.
Everything's
watch
more
anything.
available now than it's ever been.
Yeah.
I have this conversation. I had a buddy call me today, and I got a Amazon flash deal. They do this thing now where they'll queue up on your phone. It'll say there's a deal that we think you'll like, and it pops up in your notifications. And I've just started looking at them, and it was for 1 terabyte of hard disk space.
Yeah.
Which is like a little solid state drive. I don't even have a place to put it right now.
Right.
I'll find one though.
Sure.
But I was like, 1 terabyte? You kidding me?
Yeah.
I remember when all this storage was hundreds of dollars. Like I used to have computers that had 128 gigabytes, and that was the whole hard drive.
Yeah.
Or like, and it's or megabytes. It might even be megabytes when I first started. So I had a old IBM 386 was our first computer.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think that had a megabyte. Yeah, we have floppy disks going. I don't know. But I think the availability of media has become so insane that I can start a podcast and have 1080 video and HD audio.
Sure.
That it's just so available. And I think that's helped comedy. And I think it's helped a lot of things that wouldn't necessarily hit the market from a consumer perspective by virtue of the fact that there's not a lot of money in it for like a corporate sponsor, right?
Right.
Does that make sense? I don't know. What do you think? Do you have any theories on why that is?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, comics can say whatever they want, so it's pretty tough to
sponsor.
Yeah, you can't sponsor that.
Yeah, they just and so the channels like Comedy Central were like, we don't care, we've never cared, so they can always be there.
Oh yeah.
And HBO doesn't even have commercials.
Sure.
maybe that's it.
That is interesting. I hadn't thought of that at all. Yeah, like what are you gonna sponsor? Like the shirt that the person is wearing? Like how many?
And if a comedian wears a branded shirt, like that's a sellout right away.
I mean, I guess like I wonder if Dane Cook gets sponsored for different stuff. Like somebody like that's that big.
Hasn't
like,
he kind of fallen away though?
Well, yeah, I'm just saying like
what happened to him? Do you know?
I don't know.
Because like he was so big.
He was huge, yeah.
And then
he probably
all of a
just
sudden
got
gone.
tired.
Well,
I would
does he
guess.
just not tour anymore? Or?
Yeah, I haven't seen him touring or anything.
Okay.
He's probably like, I can take off the next 10 years and then do a tour and be fine.
And then be big again. Because, you know, the reminiscent crowd. And we were talking before the cameras started rolling about like hitting nostalgia in the right place at the right time. Like there will come an age where like the people that found Dane Cook early will be ready for Dane Cook again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what that age is, but I'm sure he's got someone looking at it.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you run into a younger person and they're wanting to start a career in comedy, what do you tell them? Don't. Okay.
Especially if they're really funny, because we have enough funny. I can't make it if you're making, you're gonna take my spot.
I trust you're not serious about that. Right?
No.
Okay.
But I will say, like, it's super challenging. Like you know, you better love it. You know, have fun doing it. And don't drink, for crying out loud.
Don't be a drinking comedian.
Yeah, there's too many comedians that like drink and then like they're like, oh, I'm funny when I'm drunk.
Right.
And then they can't not drink.
Oh, okay.
Because then they're stuck. Don't do that. Or I mean, that's
feedback
just
loop.
Yeah, it's bad.
So I'm assuming you've seen some stories like that run through.
Yeah, yeah, a few.
I'm sure they don't end well either.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a few that quit drinking too late, and then they can't find their voice, you know, because they're just like they're too nervous on stage or whatever.
Interesting. So can you cut me a dichotomy of like one, and you can leave names out, but
sure.
Tell me one that went really poorly and then one that ended all right.
Oh, geez. Gosh. I'm thinking of one. I don't know if I want to talk about that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. There is one comedian that I can't remember his name, who he was able to stop drinking and perform. I think he was from Round Rock, something like that. He used to come down for the open mics. And I saw his first open mic, and he was completely smashed. And I was just like, oh, okay, there's that, you know, that's what he's doing. He's just too nervous, and he figured he'd drink and get out of control. And then I saw him a few more times, and he was also drunk those times, and I was like,
It's not a repeatable process.
Yeah.
In comedy, in so many ways, needs to be. It's maybe the most repeatable thing up until a point, right? So like when you hear the story of like writing the content. So you've got how many minutes of comedy do you think you've created in your career?
Oh man.
If you piled it all together.
Probably an hour or something like that.
So 9 years, 11 months, 1 hour of content. So
right.
It's a really difficult thing to do.
Sure.
And so I think like if you were to do an hour-long show, you'd roll out everything you have, and then if you were to run that show night over night, you'd have to do the same exact thing over and over.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That's super important to be able to do that.
So like I look at this and I think like this is one of those jobs that if you can do it tremendously once, and it can take a long time to be able to even get to that spot, and then you've got to figure out how to market yourself in such a way.
Yeah.
And then you've got to stay away from all the trouble that a comedian lifestyle would attend to. It kind of makes it feel like when you do the Netflix special or you do the HBO special, it's like the NFL, right? It's
Yeah.
like that's the filtering process all the way to the top.
Sure.
So, have you ever like learned or looked into how to get your comedy out there in one of those big outlets?
Um, very briefly, there's a woman who runs the Moon Tower Comedy Festival that's here in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And she also owns Cap City Comedy Club and a few other clubs around the country.
Cap City's my favorite comedy club, by the way.
It's a great comedy club.
Second only to Zanies in Chicago.
Oh, okay. I haven't been to Zanies.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. And I called her once because I'd done the contest a bunch of times and done some like showcases, sort of auditioning for different things, and felt pretty good about where I was. And I was also playing in a band that was touring, and we had an opportunity to play on the David Letterman show.
Very cool.
I was like, oh, okay. So I gave her a call kind of nervously, and I was like, I don't know if you remember me, and she's like, oh yeah, I've seen you at the contest and stuff. And her name is Colleen, and Colleen, I was like, so I'm doing this David Letterman show with the band,
mm-hmm.
and I was wondering, should I hand them a tape? Because I'm going to be there, a tape of stand-up. And she was like, oh, well, that's not really how it works. Like, oh, okay. How does it work? Because I have no idea.
Right.
At that time, I was like, well, why does that not work?
How does it work?
But you have to have an agent,
okay,
or a manager, and they talk to whoever the producer is or whatever, the person that's booking the stand-up for the David Letterman show.
Right.
And after a long time of them watching your tapes and coming to your shows, you probably need to go to New York a couple times. They work on your set with you,
mm-hmm.
and rewrite stuff and help you with cut this word out here. You can't say this on television, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And then you might get that call to do the show. And there's some comedians in Austin that have done like Conan and David Letterman and stuff.
So
it's not impossible.
Yeah. How rare is it though? Because I feel like there's probably one comedian on those types of outlets, and it's an everyday show, right? The show's on 5 times a week, right?
Yeah, but I don't think they do stand-ups every night.
Exactly. So
right.
I'm thinking it's like once a week they have a comedian on.
Yeah.
Whereas in like the Johnny Carson days, it was almost every show, right? Like that show was all about the comedians in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, so you better be good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good comics, but you got to have the representation. You got to be in the right place at the right time, etc.
Do you think it's harder for a comedian to break through now or harder 20 years ago? Because there's two sides to the fulcrum here. It's like
sure,
the internet. You can play ball on the internet pretty easy. Like
yeah,
you can get your stuff out
there.
Yeah,
yeah, totally.
But at the same time, there's so many more comedians, and the clutter of media is like it's never been ever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. What do you think?
Harder.
Harder?
Like it's got to be harder. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but that said, you have different ways of breaking through too that you didn't have back then.
Exactly. That's the other side of the coin. Do you think, I don't know. What do you like?
As a pure stand-up, I think it's harder, but as a comedian, I think it's easier. Because you can go into writing, or you can shoot your own show. There's some comics in LA who did like it was 3 guys, and they were roommates, and they made a sketch show on YouTube, and it did really well. It's called Dead Kevin.
Dead Kevin?
Yeah, it's super funny. And it got picked up by Comedy Central, like online Comedy Central. And I think it's on, I want to say it's on Amazon Prime. I might be mistaken.
Yeah, well, there's a new outlet for that all of a sudden, as we were talking about a bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like you were talking about, there's more comedians than there's ever been. Because, you watch the old guys, and there just doesn't seem to be that many of them, but they were all fantastic.
Sure, yeah.
So, I'm wondering how that filtering process goes, because it's probably just like it is now, where only the very best get on Tonight Show, and since there's so few media outlets, it's like you only see Seinfeld and Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah.
Whereas now you see everybody, or you can see everybody.
Sure.
So I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out too. I was hoping you could help me.
Well, you came to the wrong guy.
Yeah.
It's a mystery. It really is. You got to live in New York. You got to live in LA. You got to have an agent. You got to have a manager.
Mm-hmm. What's the process to do that? Do you have to? Is it like they pick you, or they find you, or you can just sign up?
That's a good question. A lot of times they see you at like one of the big comedy festivals. Okay. There's a comedian here in Austin that's on Laugh Dammit, named Avery Moore, and she's super funny. And she got asked by Colleen to do the Just for Laughs comedy festival.
Okay.
And every year they have like auditions to do that also, but those that's separate from the contest. Mm-hmm. So the Funniest Person on Austin contest also happens every year, and the bookers for that festival, which is if it's not the biggest comedy festival, it's one of like the top 3 or something in the world.
The Funniest Person in Austin is?
No, the Montreal Just for Laughs festival.
Okay.
And they, so they'll pick a couple of comics sometimes every year from Austin to perform they have a show that's the Comics Unwrapped.
The Comics Unwrapped.
So unrepped.
Unwrapped.
Unrepresented.
Ah, okay.
So they have
like
different
talent pool.
Yeah, they have different categories. There's like, sketch, comics that are repped, and then there's comics that are unrepped. This is like the amateur sort of section of that festival.
And you have to be selected to be in the unrepresented.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And so usually they see you at the contest or somewhere else, or that you get a pretty strong recommendation from somebody, and they put you on that unrepresented show, and a lot of comics get signed from that.
Okay.
Because the talent agents and the managers go to those festivals and they see that stuff.
Okay, so what's if you were starting today, against all your own recommendations, and you were like, I got 5 funny jokes that I wrote down on my phone. Like, what would be your initial path? Like, knowing everything you know now, like, what would you do?
Say those jokes out loud on stage into a microphone.
With people there?
First,
or
yeah.
Not there?
Well, hopefully people are there, but at least one person in the audience so you can tell whether it's any good.
Okay.
I forgot what the question was. Now
if you were starting all over, knowing everything you know, like, and you got 5 funny things you wrote down on your phone, but you want to be a comedian.
Sure.
What do you do?
You got to do the open mics.
Open mic first.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, like, you can go to any comedy club and they'll have an open mic night. And they're on funny nights. Like Cap City is on Sunday night.
Yeah.
And just sign up on time and you're up there. So you do that. And then, so like there's zero barrier to entry there. No, anybody can do this.
Sure.
So like what?
Unfortunately.
I know, I've been there for a lot of them where it was like, yeah. But then on the flip side, like, you go to Cap City Comedy Club and there's like a lot of professional comedians working out new stuff. And if you go too many weeks in a row, they'll do the same jokes.
Yeah.
You've seen this, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's the best time you can have for $2.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But so that's a pitch for Cap City, but or any local comedy club. So you do this first open mic night, and I guess this is where it becomes a mystery to everybody. It's like, how does it go from there? Because there's obviously from the first open mic night to Jerry Seinfeld, there's a big black box in the middle, right?
Sure. A lot, as much stage time as you can do, and do it. You know, get out every night if you can. And in Austin, there's multiple open mics every night, so you can do 3 or 4 open mics if you want.
So the bigger the city, the more open mics there are.
Yeah, New York is stupid.
Yeah,
like there's
everywhere.
comics that are doing like open mics at lunchtime. It's like for nobody. And then they get on the train and go to 5 more. Before the day's out. It's stupid. But you have to have that stage time. You have to get in front of people, and you have to, you have to feel your way through the timing of the whatever you're saying, and how people react and all that sort of stuff.
So and this is something I hear about, and I guess I'm looking for a professional's answer, which would be to say, open mic night is like 4 minutes. 4 minutes, you get to go up for 4 minutes and tell some jokes.
Sure.
You can be good, bad, or indifferent, and then you're off.
Yeah.
How many minutes do you have to start feeling confident, like there's a future in this for you? How many minutes did you have when you felt like there's a future in for you, or is that not even the metric?
Yeah, I don't know if I thought that, but like, you can feel it at 4 minutes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know, about a year in, I was like, oh, okay. That people want me on their shows, and other comics have given me compliments that I respect, and my mom hates it, and so all of the check boxes, but to be able to do a show, you got to have 20, 30 minutes,
right.
but 10 of that better be really good.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have 4 minutes of material when you start, but all 4 of those minutes might be horrible.
Right. There's like a condensing process, and hopefully you're scrapping the bad minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, you get to your 20 minutes, and I'm gonna take you all the way through to the end here. So you get to your great 20 minutes, and you're doing it. You're going coast to coast. You're in New York. You're in. I call it Smell A because I don't really like LA. And now you're doing this. Now what's the next piece? Is this where Agent comes in the comedy festivals, or is this later?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of cities have these contests. I'm not sure whether the contest is it's not right for every comic for sure.
Okay.
But that's definitely a good place to get serious about it in a way. Like, when I did the contest, the second time I did the contest, I was like, oh, okay. I got a sense for how it works.
Right.
I want to do really well. I think the first year I got lucky and got to the finals.
I think it's really tough to get lucky in comedy, to be honest.
Well, I mean, there's the judges for the contest. The first round of the judges of the contest are like people who own the pizza restaurant down the street. Like it's just somebody who likes comedy. And then the second round, they have a couple people that are maybe a booker for a comedy club, or they might be an agent or something like that. And then the finals, you get somebody from HBO, or Comedy Central comes down, and you're like, oh, okay,
it just got real.
Yeah, exactly. So somebody in the first round that judges, they might just like the way you're talking or whatever.
Okay.
Like how confident you are, or they might like just the style of the comedy compared to everybody else or whatever.
Yeah. So I guess you could call that luck, but it's. I think in comedy, and I'm a pure consumer of this, is that in comedy it's like you're cut for it or you're not, and there doesn't seem to be a cookie cutter for that person at all. Does that make sense? Like you can look at comedians and they're a vast variety of them, but there seems to be like a few in like common threads in them, and one is they can work the road a ton, and then they can do the night shift, which is like, from what I understand, it's like a you mentioned a lunch hour open mic night, which I hadn't heard of.
Right.
It's like 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. 5 nights a week, 6 nights a week, maybe 7. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you run into that very much?
I don't know if anybody's working that hard.
Well,
in Austin,
I'm talking like on the coast. I don't think there are enough spots for that in Austin.
Yeah, not quite. I haven't run into that a ton. There was a comic that was, I don't know if he's still doing it, that won the contest. The first year that I did, or the year before I did it, I think he won.
Okay, and you were in it twice.
I've been in it 7 times.
You've been in it 7 times.
Yeah.
Okay, and you were finalist twice.
I've been a finalist 3 times.
3 times. Okay. Yeah. So, okay, tell me. I'm sorry to derail you.
That's all right. And so I met him one time. I was in New York, and he was working it that hard. He was, I don't know if it was too hard, but he was so serious about it that I was like, okay, dude, you gotta.
There's something funny about being really serious about telling jokes.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it's face value funny, but obviously anything you do full time can get serious.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I can picture it. Okay, so you got your 20 minutes. You're working all these crazy hours, and then what comes after this?
You gotta either start your own shows, your own open mics. You gotta learn that part of it.
Okay, so you gotta like essentially become the club owner.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, that's in Austin. I mean, that's how it works. I mean, you gotta, and I don't know if it works that way in New York or LA, I suppose. But you're like, if you have your own show, you're booking it. You're getting to know the other comics really well. You're getting to know what comedy can be and what it is. And you're able to work on your own stuff in comparison to that. Right. That's pretty important. Okay. Then you're doing, around the same time, you're doing other people's shows. And you're doing, showcase shows, and you're working at the comedy club. So you might be a host at Cap City. Right. That's a step for sure. So they see you in the contest, or they see you at their open mic, and they need somebody to fill in that week or whatever, and then you get that call. Okay. And then don't go over your time.
You never go over your time.
Well, you can at the open mics if you're kind of.
We're talking about the contest.
But if you're at the contest, or if you're doing the show, if you're hosting the show at Cap City Comedy Club, don't say you're supposed to do 10 minutes. Don't do 18 minutes. Right. By accident. They kind of frown upon that, because then you're cutting into everybody else's time after you, right? So they have to finish the show at whatever time so that they can clean the tables and get ready for the next show. Okay.
All right. So one of the funny things about this podcast is everyone who knows the Unconsumed podcast knows Chris Ryder. And Chris Ryder was in The Funniest Person in Austin and was a finalist. And he claims that he would have won if he hadn't gone over his time. But he went over his time. So in our minds, he is forever a loser. You heard it here, Chris. He's actually going to be on the show tomorrow, which is going to be hilarious, and I'll tell him this.
Oh yeah.
So you're all the way through to the end. You're running your own shows, and I assume that you don't have to like build a building and hire a waitstaff and kitchen and stoves and things to do a club.
No,
right?
no.
You can use someone else's club for these shows.
Sure.
Okay, that's what was. I was like, I didn't know
Oh,
that.
sorry.
I didn't know that's how that went.
Yeah, the next step after open mics is you have to find some investors and buy a building and start a comedy club. That's the very next step after you've mastered the open mic circuit.
Yeah. These are jokes, fam.
There's plenty of bars and coffee shops and smaller improv comedy clubs that might have an open mic night or
one of my dreams is to own a comedy club like Cap City. It'll never happen.
Oh yeah,
but I can still dream it.
Sure.
And then Derrick shows up and does a set, and then run on 15 more Derricks, and we got a show, right?
Yeah. It'd be a boring
it's a long show. Not a boring show.
There would be 14 more.
Oh yeah. So you're on the shows, you're working with other comedians, you're running your own open mics. Like what are the steps that vault you into the names that we know today, like Chappelle, Seinfeld, Dangerfield, Mitch Hedberg? Like what happened to those guys that made them go from this circuit to the next?
Yeah. Well, a lot of those guys went on the road.
Those are older guys, I guess.
For sure. Yeah. Let's see, an example of somebody now, like somebody like Pete Holmes is a good example, I guess, of a stand-up comic who, has been doing it for a while.
He's like the modern track of like how this goes.
Sure.
Yeah.
He did his open mics, he did his shows, he did festivals, and this is an important thing to mention is once you're doing the shows and you want to do some road work, one of the good ways to do that is to do some festivals. Okay. So festivals you pay to do. Mm-hmm. They have like a, it's like
so you're
$40 entry fee or whatever. Yeah, you're paying to work that.
And do I have to have a manager and an agent for this?
No,
you can just
absolutely not. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is a great way to be seen. If you're doing the right festival, something like Laughing Skull or Moon Tower here in Austin. If you're doing something Moon Tower, I don't think they take entries like that, but Boston Comedy Festival, there's Seattle Comedy Festival is a contest. A lot of people go to, or just for laughs, or
Just for Laughs is the one in Montreal.
In Montreal, yeah.
Okay.
And you pay to audition or whatever. You send them a tape, or they have an audition at your cap city, whatever city you're in, and you get picked, and then you can route a tour to that comedy festival.
Okay.
And back. Or you do those comedy festivals, and there's comedians from all over that go to those festivals and do those festivals.
Okay.
You meet them. Those are the connections you need to then book your comedy tour later. So you might not necessarily tour comedy clubs, because you definitely need a manager or an agent to book those for you.
Gotcha.
Unless you're like super funny. I don't know how that happens, but usually it's from an agent or a manager.
Okay.
You're doing bars and you're doing coffee shops and small pop-up comedy shows. But you can do that if you want. You make $20 here or $20 there. It's pretty exciting. And then do your comedy festival and then come back.
Okay.
Potentially.
And so from there, that's where like the HBO specials get handed out and the Netflix specials, or does that come? It feels like that almost comes after later, like a movie or like a long road trip or something, or maybe even like undercarding for a headliner.
Yeah, and a lot of times those headliners, they're picking their opener. They're picking somebody that could be fun on the road, or that can open up for them and not destroy the audience, you know.
Destroy in a good way or a bad way?
Well, both. You know?
Okay, so you don't want to be shown up by your opening act.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So you want someone funny, but not too funny.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But doing those comedy festivals, that's super important. But you know, that also is not for everybody. I mean, not everybody can afford that.
Yeah.
You know, say you pay $40 for to get into a festival, and then somehow you don't get in.
And you traveled there, I assume.
Well, there's that. That's a whole nother thing. But usually you would find out whether you're in the contest before you book your
Travel
tour or anything like that.
Okay.
Or travel. I did a festival called the Boston Comedy Festival, which is a contest. They do a couple of like booked like headliners or whatnot, but it's mostly a contest.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that is I'm not from Boston, so I got into the festival and flew there. I think I flew to New York and did a couple things, a couple different shows, and then took the bus up to Boston to do the festival.
Okay.
And did the first show, and it's like 5 minutes or something. I thought I did pretty well,
Right.
but there were some killers on that night, and I didn't advance to the next round. So that was it.
It was like
5
a 5
minute
minute show, and then
Yeah.
pack it up.
And I didn't get paid to do that.
Yeah.
I didn't even I got a t-shirt out of it.
That's an expensive T-shirt.
Yeah.
Did you fly or did you drive? How'd you do it?
Well, I flew to New York and then took a bus to
Oh, my
Boston,
goodness.
and then I had to take a bus back down to New York. And I didn't get paid for those shows either.
Yeah. When you go to New York, do you just like drop in on all the open mic nights out there?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that night or that weekend, I was able to get on. There was a show that a friend from Austin was booking at a bar, so I did that show,
Okay.
and then I think I did an open mic as well.
Okay. So
And
is there like a welcoming for comedians from out of town when you show up in New York? Because I got to assume if you're in New York and you're going to all the same clubs with all the same people all the time, it's like, hi, new guy.
Sure. Maybe a little bit.
Or no.
If you're funny, I guess.
If you're funny.
Yeah.
That helps all the time, right?
Sure. But you know, you have to, just like any business relationship or any other relationship, that's got to be cultivated. So
Mm-hmm.
like I've been to Boston to do comedy twice now,
Okay.
and in the contest, and then I had a show with a band, and they had an open mic that upstairs that night, and it just so happened that there were comedians at that open mic. This was after I did the contest festival,
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years, that remembered me from the contest. And I was like, oh yeah, remember, you know, we were able to like talk about comedy and like, oh, we both did the festival. That sucked and everything, you know, you're able to commiserate a little bit. And they thought I was funny. So I was like, oh, cool. You know, I can, that was great. You know, it was a great experience. And, you know, I'll give you a call next time I'm in Boston. Give me a call next time you're in Austin. If you're doing a show or whatever, I'll put you on my show, vice versa. But, you know, who can afford to just go out to Boston all the time to, you know, if you lived in New York or something or lived in that area, it's a lot easier if you're, maybe if you live in DC or Philadelphia, to be able to go to those other places, those other cities. And
I got to imagine there's like unbelievable temptation to just pick up and try East or West Coast all the time, right?
Sure. Well, not anymore for me.
Why
I mean,
not?
there's the temptation, but
Yeah.
with a wife and a baby, that makes it tough, you know.
Yeah, it makes it very tough.
And I have been to New York a bunch of times and LA a bunch of times, so I don't know if that's somewhere that's really where I want to live.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I wouldn't want to live in New York, I can tell you that.
Yeah,
Or LA.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't-
you said you hated LA.
I didn't say I hate it. Hate's
Oh,
a
okay.
strong word.
Sure.
I strongly dislike LA.
Yeah, there's some good restaurants, right?
I haven't been to LA in a long time.
Yeah.
When last time I was in LA, no, that's not true. I was in LA like a year ago, and I remember coming into the valley, and it was just one of those days where it's covered in smog. Somehow it was humid enough or something where it was just like sitting, and I was like, it's just the perfect picture
Sure.
of a place I don't want to be.
Right.
But then if you get outside of the valley a little bit, it's beautiful, and obviously the ocean is there. And I'm not a big ocean guy, but I can appreciate it.
You prefer small oceans?
I don't tan well either.
Oh, okay.
I prefer small oceans, lakes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess. I'm not a big lake guy either, but I can get. I understand it.
Yeah.
So we were getting to the end. I told you I'd make you get all the way to the end of this.
Okay.
So when you're going down this track and then you're doing these types of shows and you're going to New York, Boston, and you're doing the festivals, after all of this, like what is the missing piece between all the names we know and kind of like the story as we've given it so far?
Oh man.
Do we like is that and there might not even be a right answer is the reality. It just happens.
Sure. I mean, there's plenty of luck and just happenstance of being in front of the right person, and the right people, or whatever. And that, I just imagine that there's conversations that you're not a part of, where like, oh, we need to, we need this funny person for this TV show that we're. That we're putting together.
And he needs to be exactly this high, and
right.
Can't make this other actor look short or tall.
Sure, yeah, all that stuff, and that's it's terribly important. Unfortunately, that's not just being funny.
Yeah,
at all.
Yeah, dude.
I would say being funny is like 15-20%.
Really?
Yeah. There's plenty of funny people. There was a guy who came into Cap City and did an open mic this one time.
It's probably me.
It was, I think he might have done, I might have seen him one other time. I don't think he did it more than those 2 times.
Right.
And he came in to the open mic. Nobody knew him. Short kid, had a backpack. Didn't talk to anybody, went up on stage for his time, sat on the stool, and like uncomfortably moved the microphone in front of himself and pulled out a piece of paper that he had some stuff written on and told the funniest jokes. And then he stopped like in the middle of one of his jokes and like didn't look at anybody and walked off the stage. And at Cap City, you can walk off the stage and through the curtain and go out the door.
Yeah.
And the audience was like riveted because he was so funny. There was like, this has got to be a bit. He's got to be doing a bit right now but they didn't know whether to laugh or not. It was one of the best things I've ever seen at Cap City. He didn't come back.
You saw him again later, though.
No.
You've seen him twice.
I think
he saw him somewhere else earlier.
I think I saw him somewhere else before.
I
thought I recognized him, but he never came back. That was it. I guess he drove off or he walked off.
Yeah.
He might still be committing to the bit. It's possible.
It could be a long-standing joke and it's still running.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
What was what are some of the common strands you see in like people that are making it right now or getting promoted through this chain we're talking about?
They're working really hard.
Yeah.
For sure.
Is there a style that's popular right now, or do styles come in and out?
Well, that's a good question.
This is from someone that doesn't know, so like,
sure,
you could totally lie to me, and I'd be like, oh.
There's definitely. There's always variety. There's definitely one of the big trends right now is like more like conversational, like not so much like a Mitch Hedberg or Stephen Wright who's telling a joke and you can tell that they're telling a joke,
right?
You know?
I love Mitch Hedberg, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, even
all-time favorites.
Oh,
Stephen
it's so
Wright's
good.
amazing.
So good. And how many comedians did Mitch Hedberg inspire to start doing stand-up? Like how many like high school kids who like saw that and they're like, holy crap, like I can do that, you know? It's not that easy when, you know.
Well, yeah, it's not easy
He
at all.
makes it look easy. Yeah.
I would challenge everyone who sees this podcast to sit down and try to write 5 jokes. And if you can read them tomorrow and you still think you're funny, I would be extremely impressed.
Sure.
It's very difficult to write a joke that has any kind of staying power.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to cut you off again.
That's all right.
I've been all over your talk track.
That's okay. I need the help. So where was I? We're talking about styles.
Yeah, styles. Different trends in style.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a trend, maybe away from those jokey joke, like the audience can tell us that they're telling a joke.
I hope that pendulum comes back because I miss it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely comedians that do that are still super funny and successful. But, you know, you look at somebody like that's also very influential, obviously, Louis C.K. Mm-hmm. We won't talk too much about him.
We can talk. This is the internet. We can talk about anything. We can say anything we want.
You know, where he's, you know, talking about, it's almost like,
it's like a story.
It seems like he isn't doing this again. Like this is the first time he's done it. And like,
yeah, that's interesting. Because when you do see a great comedian, you feel like they're doing it just for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. That's definitely a selling point.
Interesting.
Even somebody who's, you know, Mitch Hedberg or something like that, if it seems like they just thought of it.
Yeah.
You know?
There's like you're kind of discovering it with them.
Yeah.
It's kind of feel. That's interesting. So you think that's in right now. And then what are do you have any thoughts on what you think might be next or anything like that? Another ring.
Oh geez. There's a I don't know. I think that the weird stuff I think could come back.
What do you mean by weird stuff? Like Gallagher?
Not like that. Like not wacky weird, but like weird like you're not sure what's happening. There's a guy that I saw recently. I hope the audience builds for him because I think it's just genius.
Okay.
This guy named Ben Kronberg.
Ben Kronberg?
Mm-hmm. And he's been doing it for a while.
How do you spell that? You want to pull him up?
Kronberg.
Okay, Kronberg.
And he's like, it's so weird. I mean, it's super deadpan. There's tons of space.
What's deadpan?
He's playing with, you know, it's like, there's very little inflection in his voice.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
He looks like Mitch Hedberg with a beard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, check him out.
And he does these things like he writes stupid, not stupid, but like, well, some of them are stupid songs on his iPhone. Like he'll do these like a beat on his iPhone, kind of, and then he'll have like a guitar app on there, and he'll do a guitar solo. It's wild. It's weird. But I don't know. I think that's like untapped.
Guitar solo on the phone. That is funny.
I think that kind of comedy is untapped. Like there aren't very many comedians that are doing that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's very like, it's so dry. You know, he does one joke like, would you rather? I mean, I guess it's a joke. Would you rather have sex with a dog or the dog have sex with you? I just like probably butchered one of his jokes pretty bad, but it's like, so, you know, the audience is like, there's no point where you're going to laugh. Mm-hmm. Like there's like giggle and there's uncomfortableness, and there's like this sort of area of like unsure for the audience.
Yeah.
It's not like you know, like most, you know, like Seinfeld, where like, okay, this.
Here's where you laugh.
Yeah.
Pause.
He knows, you know, he's playing with the audience in that way, you know.
So it's funny that you mentioned that, because I've been like kind of thinking about this a lot, and there's like there's levels of discomfort that people can get to, and there's either in the way I portray it quite a bit is in that discomfort you can find learning, or you can find growth, or you can find strength. Mm-hmm. But the thing that people don't talk about a lot is that in that space of the unknown or unsure or discomfort, there's also like a whole world of comedy right on that line, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's super interesting to think and talk about, because what is it about being uncomfortable that can, I think this also works with like anger. Like angry can be very funny too.
Yeah.
It's like the emotion of like being upset. That's like 10% of comedy bits.
Sure.
And so I'm just a consumer of this, and I'm noticing this, and I'm like, that is very cool.
Yeah.
Because it's a deep principle that it's found its way into my favorite venue. So works out perfect. Mm-hmm. The other thing I was going to ask you about is, and we'll take my timeline of like how a comedian starts and finishes and at HBO, to say that final step, we just doesn't seem to be a formula for it.
Yeah.
If there was, I'm sure more guys would be on it, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's somebody who really broke out in the last like 5 years is Tig Notaro. Uh-huh. You know who that is?
I do.
Okay. So nobody knew not very many people knew who she was.
Right.
Like,
she got a show on like a full-blown
Amazon Prime.
Yes.
It only went one season, unfortunately. It was so good.
Oh, really?
It's called One Mississippi. She's one of my favorite comedians for sure.
She's very dry.
Yeah, she's super dry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she does things like on stage. I saw her at Cap City once. This was before she had her cancer and breakups and stuff. Where she did this bit that was just, like, blew my mind. Totally blew my mind. Where she's like, you know, some comedians like they take the microphone out of the stand and they move it over here.
Right.
And she was like, what if they moved it over here? And then she like kept on moving it until she was out in the audience with the stand, like moving it around, and she put it on, and then she left it on somebody's table.
Did she like, are you talking about the whole mic stand? Like if this was an upright and she left it on the table?
Yeah.
I shortened it so she could reach, or stood on a chair, or what?
Well, she had the mic on out of the stand. She took it out. Anyway, she might have done that joke on Conan. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But she did.
Always move the stand.
She did another thing where she moves the stool, and it like makes a sound. Uh-huh. And she said she did that one time, and the audience laughed, and then she had to keep on doing it. So she does it for like 10 minutes. It's ridiculous. Anyway, then, well, you know, I don't think that getting cancer and breaking up with your girlfriend is the like recipe for success. But it was once. It was for her. Holy crap. But she also, you know, did an amazing set at a prestigious show in LA. Mm-hmm. And Louis C.K. was there, and the other comedians were there. And Louis C.K. was like, well, I think that you should release that set. You know, it's recorded. And so he put it out for her. Okay. So that was like a huge
thing. You almost need to be walked to the front of a line by someone that is at the front of the line.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Yeah.
A production company or a management play or another comedian. Uh-huh. Huh. It's funny to think about this, because it is... comedy seems to be so different in how it selects its champions, essentially. Because like other industries are very straightforward. Like you could say you saying like being funny is only 10 to 15% of how it plays out. Whereas like if that was how my world worked, like the thing you're supposed to do is only 10 to 15% of it.
Yeah.
I might not want to play that game, you know?
Sure.
Like it'd be
it's
a very
discouraging
game.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But then at the same time, I'm like sitting on the sidelines, like cheering for all my favorite competitors, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay, what this lends itself to, and I'm kind of pointing to this timeline, is there has to be, in order for comedy to exist and have all these people go through this, there has to be exit ramps at various times along the way. So, like, some comedians get pulled into sitcoms, some comedians do improv, some comedians go to Saturday Night Live or things like it, or they become writers, or they do this, or they do that.
Or they die.
Or they die.
It's the
They
biggest
seem to die
exit
all the
ramp.
time.
The ultimate exit.
Strong exit.
Yeah.
So, like, can you tell us about some of the exits that you've seen where they're like they live in the comedy world, but they're not stand up?
Sure.
Are there things that people don't necessarily always think about?
Oh man. Well, I think that, and this happens in LA. I don't know if it happens very much here, where there's a lot of like, in LA where you're on stage to get seen.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stand-ups that aren't really comedians.
Okay.
They're like an actor or something.
Does that drive you nuts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would be able to stand it very much. I mean, it wouldn't be as fun, you know,
Right.
to be bumped off of an open mic or whatever, or off a show
So
for
some actor can show his
Yeah.
jawline.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. But if they're doing something interesting, I guess that's
Yeah,
different.
If you can play ball, game on.
Sure. Yeah.
As an audience member, I'm like, all right, fair enough. But even as the audience member, I feel a little ripped off.
Yeah.
If you're here to be seen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it might not be as obvious to the audience member.
Well, if
But
they're
it
not
is
funny.
If they're not funny, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen too much in Austin. I think everybody's like trying to be a comedian
Mm-hmm.
that's doing the open mics.
Yeah. So, like, if you've been doing this for 10 years, have you had friends that turned off and became writers or like
Definitely.
became actors, or
Sure.
what happens on that track?
Yeah. There's a comedian that did really well in the contest a couple years ago, and he moved to LA.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he moved to LA to write necessarily, but I never even knew that he wrote. He did some acting.
Okay.
He acted in a Friends movie that's actually doing okay.
Oh, I thought you were meaning like a Friends movie, like The Show. There was a Friends movie.
Oh, no.
Because that's like one of the internet's most requested things.
Right. He replaced it, you know. He replaced one of the characters. Anyway,
Yeah.
that would be great. They made a Friends movie of the TV show, but none of the cast members agreed to do it. So it's just other actors.
Really?
No, not at all. I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
But that would be funny.
That would
if
be
they
really
had-
funny because that's exactly
just
what
like-
happened with Dumb and Dumber.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Remember they made a second
That's
one
right.
that didn't have
It
the
didn't
guy?
have Jim Carrey
it didn't have Jim Carrey.
Yeah,
It's like, you don't make that movie.
yeah, it's insane.
So yeah, like I was like prepping that comment when you said that didn't have the right people in it. I
Right.
was like, who's Jim Carrey? Let's say that name.
Well, anyway, he moved to LA, I think, just to do stand up, and I don't know him very well, so I don't know. Maybe he had an agent or manager or something like that when he went out there, and they suggested he go out there.
Right.
But then he got hired by SNL, so he's working for Saturday Night Live as a writer,
Very
which
cool.
is crazy.
Yeah, that's like the top of the heap, right?
Yeah. And he's very young. I think when he did the contest, he was 19. You know, way too funny to be that age, you know? Stupid.
Some people are blessed then.
Yeah.
You had to have started at 10.
Ye-
To the mark in 19, right?
Yeah, because he's
Right.
gonna find his voice. All right, I got you.
Yeah.
Tell me, do you ever get like people that aren't in comedy asking you to like tell them a joke or like
Oh yeah.
do a bit for you?
All the time.
So I've done open mic like 3 or 4 times, and when anyone ever hears it, they're like, "Do the bit," and I was like, "A, I'm not good. B, I don't remember. C,
Yeah.
it would be horrible, and I'm not going to expose myself to that kind of criticism
Yeah.
on the spot like this." And then you, on the other hand, as a pro, are like, "I obviously wouldn't do that ever, right?" It's got to
Not
happen every day,
well. I have done it a couple times.
and you just roll it off. Does it work?
Oh, it never works. Yeah. Sometimes you're you're at a party or something, or a show or something, and that your friend introduces you to their girlfriend or something,
Right.
and they're really nice,
Mm-hmm.
and they really like stand-up comedy, and he's talking you up. He's like, "Oh my God, I've seen him. He's super funny. Oh, you got to do that one joke with the thing. She's gonna love it." Okay, all right. Never works.
The expectations are way too high
Oh
to
my
ever
gosh.
deliver there.
Come to a show, for crying out loud.
Exactly. Speaking of which, can you pull up Derrick Phelps on his page actually, and then you've also got a ton of great stuff on YouTube.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
yeah, well, you had me rolling the other day and today before we sat down for this. So do you have any new content you're coming out that you're excited about, or anything that you think was is coming up that's new?
That's a good question. I'm doing my show
Right.
in October 14th.
This is the game show.
Yeah, the game show.
The game show's got to be a beast because you got to have new content all the time, right?
Yeah, every month it's new comics. Although we've pared it down, it's not as beastly as it was when it started.
The ambition came down to reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we started, we were trying to do like that picture. Okay. I think when we started, we were trying to do like the game show with like an element of like movie stuff.
Okay.
And the hope was eventually,
Click on
I should have booked some shows.
click
before.
on comedy and then comedy videos. So I just found you on YouTube, and so yeah, these are
Yeah.
keying off YouTube. So the one on top is my favorite. With the I'll let the watcher view these on their own.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, don't play it now.
where are these done at? So that top one, I remember that background. Where is that done at?
That's at Cap City.
That's at Cap City, and
Yeah.
then is the second one down also Cap City?
It is. That's the smaller room at Cap City, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. They have that curtain. For a while, is it? I think it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they used to have a weird sculpture, that I think they covered with the curtain.
Okay, cool. So yeah, check out theDerrickPhelps.com if you want to see some of Derrick's stuff. He's also on YouTube. You've got are you touring at all right now? Are you a regular at the Cap City or?
I am not at the moment. No.
Okay. Well, you've got the game show. Where can
Yeah.
people check that out at?
That'll be at Barrel of Fun.
Barrel of Fun. If you wanted to get the address for that, is that on your Facebook page?
You can find it on. We have a Facebook page
Well,
for
that's where
Laugh.
I've heard
yeah.
about it.
Yeah, for Laugh Dammit.
Uh-huh.
Laugh Dammit ATX is the Facebook, but you can just search for it.
Okay.
And that happens monthly, and then the kids version of that show also happens monthly, same place.
Okay. Okay, very cool. Yeah, I paused there for a second because I was thinking about there's got to be a major market for kids comedy too.
Yeah, I wondered that.
Because,
I mean,
yeah.
our show has comedy in it for sure. I'm not sure how you would do like a stand-up comedy show or something like that. But there's definitely like improv. There's a kids improv, and like there's a scene for that.
Yeah, that's something I'd never even thought of before.
Yeah.
I'll have to, because I've got, like I said, I got very young kids, and I'm looking forward to when they are interested in things that are funny. I can't
Sure.
wait for my kid to like tell me a joke, but just one. I hear the guys talk about other kids tell them 100 jokes. All right, well that's great, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'd love to see you out when you're doing this, so keep me updated on when you're going to be live again. And
Sure.
we'll take it from there.
All right.